Hello, rare ones. Welcome back to Rarely Typical. I am so excited to bring you season 3 of the podcast. I know that you guys probably thought that I forgot about this, but I did not. It has just taken me a little while because life has been lifing. But this is a podcast for the chronically ill, and I'm sharing what life looks like when it's rarely typical. And so I'm really excited to bring you guys a new season. But before I dive in, I do want to talk about what content is going to look like going forward. So if you're new here, my name is Jerry Langan. I have pulmonary arterial hypertension, which is a rare disease. And because it's a rare disease, I know that not everybody can relate. And so this is a podcast for chronically ill. There will be lots of content about pulmonary arterial hypertension, but there will also be content that is relatable just in a general chronic illness sense. When I say this is going to look different, this season is going to look a little different than it did in the last 2 seasons of the podcast. I still want to chat about pulmonary arterial hypertension. I still want to raise awareness, but I also just want to talk about life, and I want to give you updates, and I want to feel like I'm talking to my friends. So I'm going to be diving a lot into podcasts this year. Substack has been the place, I think, where everything is going to be housed. And so if you were getting this as an email and you are listening to this right now, there is a Substack for this page, and that is a blog. And I will be writing more. I will be writing more about life and updates, and it's just a little more in depth than you can go in an Instagram caption. And I do find that there's a lot of people looking for the details, and you can't just do that in an Instagram caption. But this podcast is part of my word of the year, my expansion of moving into newer and bigger things. And I want this podcast to be an extension of my Substack, and I want you to get the nitty-gritty details. And so that's what this is going to look like going forward. And I hope that that works for everybody. If it doesn't, well, it just is what it is. I just wanted to catch up with you guys for a few minutes. So I did not forget about this podcast. It's just in November, we decided we were going to move. And so we bought a new house and sold our house in like 3 weeks. And we moved up the street pretty much to our dream house, which was super exciting. But there was a lot that happened. I feel like I have been hosting people in my new house for the last like 12 weeks, and I've finally gotten a break. And so I'm exhausted. But here I am. I'm back, and I'm super excited for this podcast and what the future will look like for Rarely Typical. What I do want to chat about today is not only did I move, but I also just had the Remunity transition. So if you have been around for a while, you know that I have been a die-hard CADD MS3 fan. I have been on pump since 2020. I was on IV originally, and then I went to an oral medication, and then I started the subcutaneous pump in 2020. Because of that, this has been pretty much my lifeline, and I say that both literally and figuratively. The pump has been both life-changing and the hardest thing I've ever had to do. This pump has been with me for so long that I honestly feel like it's an extension of my body. And they made a new pump, and I heard so many bad things about it that I did not want to switch. And because of that, you guys got to hear that on Instagram for the last like 4 years. I have heard a lot of bad stuff about the original Remunity. I have not had it personally, so I cannot say whether or not that's true or accurate. I just know that I've heard enough about it that it made me nervous and I did not want to use it. So I waited, and they came out with a new pump called the Remunity Pro, which is version 2 of the original. And I've got to say, I did switch over in January because my CADD MS3s are on their last leg. They are barely surviving. They're barely hanging on. And I knew that the transition was coming, but with moving in November and all of the stuff we were doing, I just was not ready to switch until this year. And so in January of this year, 2026, I transitioned from the CADD to the Remunity Pro. and it wasn't that bad. The experience of it was interesting. And that's why I want to talk about it on this podcast, because it's a longer story than I could blog about or put on Instagram. But when I originally made the transition, I told my doctor I was ready to switch in like November or December, but they had to put in an order. And then CVS, who is my specialty pharmacy, got the order and then had to run it through insurance. And then I didn't get the approval for it until January. And so I got the approval for it and they scheduled me to switch. This is all part of the lead up. The switch was, pretty boring. The lead up was, at least. They called and they said, we will have a nurse reach out to you. You have to have a nurse come in and train you on this pump. And then once you are trained, you will switch over and then you'll be good to go. And so I said, okay. And then I waited, and it took probably about a week or two before I heard from a nurse. The local nurse in my area is a couple hours away, and she called and she said, we're going to transition you. These are the things we're going to do. I've got to order your supplies. And she was like, and then I will come and I will train you, and then we'll be good to go. She asked me a couple of questions about like my current pump and my current site and that kind of stuff. She said that I had to change my site in order to change pumps. And at that time, I was 8 weeks into my site, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to change my site just to have to change pumps. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And she gave me a little pushback on that, and I was really annoyed. But it just sounded uneducated, I guess. If you've been on this, you know that the pump is just the device, and it shouldn't matter about where the site is or what the site is doing, because you're still using the same tubing and pump setup, So we had a little bit of an argument about that, and I told her absolutely not. And then she ordered my supplies and told me that she would touch base with me again. Well, she scheduled me for the next Thursday for transition. And on Tuesday afternoon, I get a phone call from a CVS pharmacist, and they say, we saw that you're transitioning to the Remunity Pro. Did you know that your supplies are not coming until Friday? And I was like, no, my transition is on Thursday. And he was like, yeah, I saw that. So then I'm flagging it because you obviously need your supplies before Friday. And I was like, yes, that's true. And he was like, well, I'm going to have to expedite this. I'm so glad I caught it, blah, 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 blah. This lady scheduled supplies to come on Friday when she was coming to teach me how to use the supplies on Thursday. And so they rescheduled all of my stuff. And then while I'm on the phone with this pharmacist, I was like, hey, can you just go ahead and like let me know what supplies she ordered, because she didn't ask me what I needed. And I was up for supply anyway. I do a monthly supply phone call with them. And so I was due. And so he went through the supply list, and it literally was nothing that I have on my current supply list. And so I told them that I didn't need any of that stuff. Like, I don't use the setups that they had. I didn't use a lot of the stuff that they send, because most of it doesn't work anyway. And so he was like, oh, great. So this isn't what you want, and it's not supposed to come on the right day. So he redid everything, and it did come on time. Did I still get the supplies I didn't want? Absolutely. The supplies I did not want came anyway, which was super funny. And then I get a phone call from a different nurse. This nurse is apparently a nurse manager, and she is not located here, but she said that she wanted to know, if I was comfortable with the nurse I had, and if I wasn't comfortable, if there was anything that she could do to help. And she wanted to make sure that I understood that it was a safe space, and that if I needed anything, I could talk to her, which was very kind. And it was just funny and kind of out of the blue. And then I told her that I wasn't confident in this nurse that called. And so next thing I know, I'm getting another phone call from a different nurse who is out of Atlanta. And apparently they were going to bring in nurses from somewhere else to train me. They actually brought in 2 nurses instead of 1, which I'm not super sure why I needed 2. But then all of a sudden I had 2 different nurses, not the nurse that is located here, and a 3rd nurse that was calling me from a different state. And so it was just a lot of moving pieces, and I'm not super sure how it happened or what happened. Like, do you guys follow me on social media? Maybe. Maybe they just saw that I was unhappy with the way things were going and they thought that they could fix it. But it was a very large cluster before transition happened. But the day of transition came, and the nurses came from out of state. They were super kind. We walked through a lot of the pump stuff. They taught me how to use it. They taught me how to fill it. They gave me a couple of little tricks. And I have worked with the pump prior to being transitioned to it. I've seen it. And so I knew a lot about it anyway. And so, the training didn't take very long, and I switched, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. It's definitely different. And being on it now, having been on it for like a month and a half, I'm not going to lie, I kind of like it. I know that my United Therapeutics friends are cheering in the background as they listen to this. They have already heard me say that I don't hate it, which I think is probably the best thing they could have hoped for. It honestly has been pretty much a non-issue. There have been obvious signs of growth and change. As with anything, some things just take a little bit to learn. With this new pump, it is definitely smaller and definitely lighter. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you get to see it. And so this is what it looks like. And it's definitely small. It fits in the palm of my hand. It's on a clip. And so it looks a little bulkier than it actually is. But it's nice because I can just clip it to my waistband. Like, I'm in leggings right now, and I can clip it to my leggings, and it's no big deal. Before, I had to wear my CADD in a pump belt. And when I had it clipped, it felt like a beeper. It was like very large and always in the way. If it was clipped to me, I preferred to wear it in a pump belt or in my bra, but it is kind of big and like kind of bulky. And when I stopped using the pump belt, no joke, for like 2 weeks, I kept feeling like I was forgetting something because it has become such an extension of my body that not having a belt around my midsection just felt weird. It felt like I was forgetting my phone at home. And so I will say that I like the size of the Remunity Pro. One of the things with the Remunity Pro versus the original Remunity is the original Remunity comes with an actual remote, and it looks like a fan remote, like one of those external fans that you have in your room. That is not what the remote looks like for the Remunity Pro. The Remunity Pro's upgrade is that the remote looks like a phone because it is a phone. It's an Android phone that has been repurposed to function as a remote for the pump. And I think that the reason they did that is because the remote from the original was having so many Bluetooth issues that they switched to a phone because it has eliminated, I think, 90% of the issues that the original was having when it came to connectivity. So my phone remote that they have given me is definitely a phone, and it's definitely bulky, and I have to carry it. It's really annoying because I already have a hard time functioning with my own phone, and now I have 2 phones to take care of. But honestly, for the most part, it has been a non-issue when it comes to connectivity. It's very dumbed down, and there are specific instructions on the remote that tell me what I need to do next if something happens, if there's an alarm or whatever the case is. Carrying another phone is definitely not what I wanted to do, but it genuinely is not that big of a deal. I don't carry it if I'm going to be out of the house for just like a little bit of time. If I'm running to the store, if I'm running an errand, I don't take the remote with me. But if I'm going to be somewhere where it's going to be really annoying to leave, or if I'm going to be gone from the house for more than like a couple hours, I'll just throw it in my purse. Having to carry a purse because I have 2 phones now was definitely not on my bucket list for 2026. But I will say that I've had a lot less issues than I expected with this pump. The one thing I will say about this pump that is different is that I was changing my medication on my old pump every 48 hours. It was almost to the T every 48 hours. And then I could stop the pump if I was taking a shower, or if I was doing something like swimming or whatever. And when it started back up, it would just start back up. The problem with the Remunity Pro is that regardless of whether I stop it or whatever, changing my medication is not always precise to the hour. So, for example, I'm changing my Remunity Pro cassette every 72 hours, but really it's not 72 hours. When you change it, it actually tells you it's only 71 hours. And so even if you stop it, the time doesn't change, even though technically, if it's not running, the medicine would still be in the pump. Does that make sense? Like, if you're not using the medicine because the medicine is stopped, there should still be extra time. But for the Remunity Pro, it doesn't matter if you stop it, it will still tell you there's only so many hours left. And because it's 71 hours, not exactly 72 hours, if I change my cassette at 8 o'clock, the next time I have to change it is 7 o'clock. And then the next time I have to change it is 6 o'clock. Unless I stop it, but even if I stop it, it's not exactly the right time. So then the time gets pushed and it's inconvenient to a normal person's lifestyle. And so that's probably my biggest gripe with it, is that the inconsistency with time change has been weird. I haven't gotten used to that, like, I need to be mindful of like what time I'm changing my cassette. I'm a normal nighttime cassette changer. Like, I put the kids to bed and then I do my thing. But sometimes my pump is beeping that I'm almost out of medication during dinner. And technically it shouldn't be, because I should have enough in there to get me to the 72 hours. But my pump is alarming and telling me that I don't have any medicine. So that has probably been the biggest adjustment, is like, I'm having to adjust my actual day-to-day life to this cassette. And I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. But for the most part, I actually do really like it. I have been, wearing it for a while. And where we are now is that I'm functioning with it, and it feels a lot less cumbersome than it did when it was in a pump belt. I genuinely am enjoying not having to change it, but every 3 days instead of every other day. So I get a little extra time to feel a little extra normal, And because it's not attached to my body and like a big brick on the front of my body, I do feel like it works better with my outfits and all of that stuff. First world problems, right? But for the most part, I'm surprised. I do like it a lot better than I expected to. I did have to change the concentration of my medication. I went from, if you're on Remodulin, you understand, I was on the 5 milligram green bottle, and now I'm on the 10 milligram pink bottle. And not that it's a big deal. It's just that they only give you just enough to make it to the next month before you have to order your supplies. And I've heard from other people that they push it all the way to the last minute. And sometimes you're like waiting on your supplies to show up so you can change your cassette, which is scary, because if you have winter storms, hurricanes, that kind of stuff, you just want to make sure that like you're getting your medicine on time and that you're not waiting until the last minute. I haven't had that issue yet, but that's something I'm trying to be aware of. I had extra medicine on the green bottle because I wasn't using all of it monthly, because they were sending me 2, but now they're only sending me 1. And so having to pay attention to how much medicine is left in my bottle and whether I'm going to have enough is something that I feel like I wasn't worried about before, but now I have to be worried about. But for the most part, transition was a little complicated at first when it came to pharmacy and like supplies and stuff, but the pump itself has been fine. Everything else, all of that specialty pharmacy stuff, is not really the manufacturer's fault. That is something that specialty pharmacy needs to figure out. Like, CVS needs to do a better job. But UT making this pump, updating it, I feel like this one is 10 times better than the original, but I don't know because I didn't use the original. But I honestly have not had as many issues as a lot of people are having, and I think it's because I'm on the new one. I don't hate it. I don't even know if I would go back at this point. And I know that my UT fans are loving that because I think I might like it better than my CAD. I don't love it because it's got the remote, and I don't love it because I can't see how much is on it. There's a couple of things that I would update for sure, and I have talked to them about it. There are a few things that would make life a little easier if they would update and just fix it a little bit. But for the most part, I actually do really like it. So if you're in the middle of transition, if you're thinking about transition, or if you know that you have an upcoming transition to the Remunity Pro, I encourage you that it honestly wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I do like it. So in closing, that is how transition went. And so, yeah, guys, I just want this new season to look a little bit like we're just chatting. I don't want it to be as super curated as it was before. I feel like this is a place where I can expand and explain to you how things are going, and you can hear it instead of having to read it. But if you want to read it, I am going to be publishing blog posts monthly so that you can get a better idea of it. I hope that this was interesting and helpful. If you are transitioning, I hope that you get a smooth process and that you like it and that you get adjusted to it and that it goes well for you. I have personally enjoyed the new pump. There definitely is growing pains, and I think that that's with everything, but I do feel like it has been a good move for me, and so I encourage you to give it a try. I have finally given up my CAD, and I am not going to lie, Remunity has been not too terrible. As a creator, I'm really excited for what 2026 has. I'm excited for what this podcast will look like this season. I hope that you guys will get something from it. So thanks for following along, you guys. Thanks for being here. Happy season 3. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys again. And I hope that you guys have a great week. And I will talk to you next time.